Hey guys, this is actually a video request about Kaiden's hearing aids. Now, I can't remember the lady's name, and I can't remember whether she sent me a message or it was in a comment that she said she was interested in hearing about Kaiden and sort of how he's taken to his hearing aids. So I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name, and I had a quick check and I couldn't find the comment. So let me know, stick a comment on this video, let me know your name. Okay, so basically, after Kaiden was born, he spent 2 weeks in the NICU and then another 6 in Skaboo. And because he was born with the congenital CMV, we straight off the bat pretty much knew that he had hearing loss. We didn't know to what degree it would be, but we basically knew that he did have hearing loss. So they didn't do the newborn screening because there wasn't really any point. And he couldn't have like a more extensive test done because he was either in intensive care or special care, so he couldn't leave the unit. So his first test was done when he was about 3 months old, and that one he had to just be sleeping, like they didn't sedate him or anything. He had little like sensors on his head and little microphones in his ears. So every time the lady made a sound in either ear, the sensors on the head would pick up sort of brainwaves when his brain heard the sound. That test showed that he had mild to moderate in his left ear and profound in his right. In his right ear he didn't have very much of a response at all. So after that assessment we knew that he had hearing loss, significant enough to need hearing aids. So we went to Australian Hearing to have his first mould impressions done, but his ears were so tiny that they couldn't do them. So around that time we started speech therapy, and we go to a place called the Cora Barclay Centre, and basically they focus on learning to listen and use speech. There's no signing at all. We were seeing a lady named Katie to begin with there, but she left in 2008 to go back home to Sydney where her family is. And then we had a Canadian lady, her name was Hillary, but she's just left at the beginning of July to go back to America, so now we've lost 2 speech therapists. And we've got a new lady, but we've only had 1 session with her. I can't even remember her name, but she's really nice. She's still training, so she's not fully qualified yet. But yeah, back on track. The second try at getting the mould impressions done was successful, and he was fitted with his hearing aids at about 17 weeks old. It was like basically like that. As soon as he got those hearing aids, he was just a completely different baby. We noticed the change straight away. He started smiling, and you could just tell like he was able to access like all this stuff that he hadn't ever heard before. So it really really changed him. He had, I didn't write that down. He had a second test done. I can't remember how old he was, but the second test he had to be sedated for it. He had to be completely asleep and not moving or anything for that one to work. And again, he had little sensors on his head and microphones in his ears again, and that was the test that showed that he actually has moderate to severe in his left, and his right has remained profound. So after that his hearing aids were adjusted to better suit his actual loss. They do it really conservatively because obviously they don't want to set it up to exactly what they need straight off the bat, because otherwise it's just they're going to go from, you know, sort of only hearing muffles and only certain loud sounds clearly, to then having those hearing aids put in and everything is just going to bombard them and everything's going to be so loud to them, and it over, you know, stimulates them and just overworks the brain, and it's a lot harder for them to sort of absorb and process it all when it's just all straight in at once. So they set it up really conservatively to begin with, and then they gradually change the settings so that more and more sound is being let in, and then eventually it's done at like full potential for their needs. In the early days, like when Kaiden was like around 4 months, because he was growing so much, he needed impressions done every single week, and because the hearing mold, when the molds are done here, they need to be sent to another state in Australia to be made, so it takes about a week to get them. So at that stage, as soon as we got them back, they'd already be too small, because, you know, he'd been a week without them, and in that week he'd already grown so much that they were already too small. He has regular tests, both with the aids and without. He just had a test last week, which was without hearing aids, and I'll stick that on YouTube as well, just to show sort of what goes on, and and it also shows doing the impressions and then what the impressions look like. All the tests that he's had since the last like full-on test that showed what his actual hearing is, they've all been positive. They've all showed like each time the results have been more and more better. There's been no decline at all in his hearing loss, which is really uncommon with CMV babies. Usually they have a decline within the first 12 months, but that hasn't been the case with Kaiden, and his has stayed consistently the same the whole time. The tests that he's had, they show his actual hearing, what he can hear normally with his ears, the damage done, that will never ever get better. It's permanent damage and nothing can ever make it better. But as he develops mentally, his brain learns to sort of hear more and interpret more. So as it's the same with any child, hearing impaired or not, the older they get, the more they're able to hear. So like they learn to hear, you know, whispers better, and they learn, like, if they're focusing on something and there's a noise off to the side or whatever, they developmentally learn, oh, it's come from over there, look over there, that's where it came from. So that's what his tests are showing, that he's developmentally improving with his hearing, if that makes sense. Pretty much right from day one, Kaiden has been perfect with his hearing aids. Because I mean, he got them at 4 months, around 4 months old, so he's never known any different. And it's just always been a perfect little angel with them. He used to take them out when they went flat, but then around 12 months he started constantly pulling them out. Like, we would put them in, turn our back, and they'd be out. Like, it was non-stop. We'd put them in, straight back out, and then he went through a phase where he'd take them out and he'd drop them over the side of the pram. So we've lost a few of them.